Welcome to Mountains of Evidence. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I think is crucially important. The topic is resilience. I have noticed that people go through hard times and some people come out of it intact and they learn from it and they can grow from it, whereas others, they're crushed by it. We are living now in very tough times, and humanity is facing some really big challenges. But I notice that some people, they face a challenge, they have a very tough, difficult situation, and they survive it, they go through it, they come out of it, and they are even better than when they first encountered the challenge. And that is resilience. That capacity that a human being has to survive and thrive after being impacted by hardship, by tragedy and disaster. Why is it some people, when hit by tragedy, despair and disaster, they do not lose hope, but they stay hopeful and they seem to survive and take it in stride and even grow from the experience? Resilience is crucial because everyone during their normal lifetime will experience personal hardship or crisis with the potential to overwhelm or crush them. These crises may be psychological, emotional, physical, financial, and so forth. Everyone in the normal course of living, and we say not if, but when it happens, will face challenges, difficulties, trouble, and resilience is what determines if you're crushed or if you thrive thereafter. So we want to know what are the key determinants of resilience. What are the traits, the character traits of people who are resilient as opposed to those who are not? Well, there are 7 character traits of resilient people, as I have noticed from the Bible and from those around me whom I have known for a long time. First, they are resolute in faith. And we'll take each one of these in turn. They're resolute in faith. We'll explain in a while what we mean by that. Secondly, they have constant growing faith. Thirdly, they have unmovable hope. Fourthly, they have constancy of godly purpose. Number 5, they have unquenchable internal spirit. Number 6, they are unbounded in thankfulness. And number 7, they have a deeply forgiving heart. Now, that resilience determines when tragedy or catastrophic events strike, will determine the response of the individual to these events. The aftermath of tragedy then is twofold. Number 1, the non-resilient person will face defeat, will resign, will show despair, will have experience loss of faith. But the resilient person, on the contrary, will show greater boldness, greater faith, greater certainty of hope, and an assured sense of purpose. For this series of lessons, we'll draw on personal experiences of others, but we'll draw mainly on the key characters of the Bible, those who are hallmarks of a resilient personality. We start first with the case of Daniel. Daniel was a young man, and Nebuchadnezzar had overtaken Israel, and Nebuchadnezzar had instructed his servants, his royal servants, to go and pick among the Jewish nation the best young men, the young men who were handsome, and who showed great promise that he could train them to be good Babylonian philosophers and wise men. And he took these young men to Babylon, and among them was Daniel. And when they arrived in Babylon, Daniel was going to be served the food from the king's table. And the eunuch was responsible for keeping the young men fed. When he got to Daniel, he was going to give Daniel some food from the king's table. Daniel did not refuse to eat the food from the king's table. And the Bible tells us that Daniel resolved in his heart not to defile himself with king's food or wine. We want to note something here. The Bible says Daniel resolved in his heart. Daniel did not make a resolution like we do at the end of the year. Say, oh, my New Year's resolution is to lose some weight. No, Daniel resolved in his heart. He went deep into his heart and he found the strength and he committed in his heart and he let God take his heart and he told the eunuch that he would not defile himself with the king's food. Now, Daniel was doing that at peril to his own life. It would have been easy for Nebuchadnezzar to just execute Daniel on the spot. But he pleaded with the eunuch not to give him the king's food, not to make him eat the king's food. And we have to go again and say, Daniel did not look at others, what they were doing. Daniel did not look at what was convenient. Daniel went into his heart to find where the Spirit of God was hidden in his heart. And he resolved in his heart not to eat of the king's food, no matter what the consequences. This is resolute faith. A faith that is resolved on the inside. A faith that comes from the inside. A faith that taps into what God, the person has reserved, what the Spirit of God has reserved on the inside. They tap into that and they make a decision, a resolute decision of faith, not to defile himself with the king's food. And what was the outcome for Daniel? We know that was the beginning of test of Daniel's faith. But Daniel's faith was tested over and over again. He was thrown in the lion's den. He was thrown in the fiery furnace. But because of that initial resolute faith, not to defile himself with the king's food, we see Daniel continues to be resolute, to be steadfast, and not to go back on his commitment to be true to his faith. What is the outcome? The outcome is a healthier Daniel. The outcome is a wiser Daniel. The outcome is a more faithful, a more enduring Daniel. A Daniel who has more strength of character, more strength of faith, more resolution in his heart, that he had chosen the right path. Because Daniel saw that after that initial commitment, not to defile himself with the king's food, God blessed him with an outcome that was far superior than the outcome for the others. We thank you so much for listening to us today. In the next video, we'll talk to you about the second trait of truly resilient people, and that is constant growing faith. Thank you so much.